For many people during lockdown, their garden has been a godsend. For me, it's been a bit of a revelation. Our garden has been a work in progress over the last couple of years. When we moved here, it was a blank canvas, and there was a lot to be done. There were fences to move, weeds to spray, the garden had to be ploughed and grass sown, there was a polytunnel to build, hedges to plant, and beds to be dug. It all took time, energy, and an awful lot of compost. In February this year, we decided to clear out the polytunnel, which had been a bit neglected last autumn because it was so wet. Last year, strawberry plants had grown runners, so when we potted them up, we had about 40 plants. The packets of free seeds, which had come with the gardening magazine, were sorted out and sown, and we began to dream of lots of healthy vegetables. We'd begun to get shrubs and plants for some new flower beds when lockdown happened. The garden centres closed overnight. We thought we had more time to do work and that it was a bit early to buy certain things, but in fact, we were too late. Seed potatoes were like hen's teeth, and more seeds were planted as we realised that buying vegetable plants was not an option this year. There was a sense of frustration too about my work. A big part of my usual workload couldn't happen at the start of lockdown. What we did do was done by email and by video conference. When you're used to being very busy and constantly catching up, it takes some getting used to. I now had time to read some of the pile of books I'd been intending to get round to, or indeed to clean the kitchen cupboards, but I couldn't settle to it. I was concerned about certain situations I was dealing with and how they might play out, and I felt responsible, even though there were other agencies involved. Meanwhile, in the garden, the strawberries were flourishing. I had found some plants and roses on the internet. Our radishes were the size of small turnips, and anybody who came to the house got a lettuce, whether they wanted it or not. But we had some discouragements too. The heavy frost in early May set back the tomatoes, even though they were in the polytunnel and under cover. The wind battered our peas and beans, but somehow they survived. We have tomatoes, even if it's not a huge crop. The courgettes and cucumbers are thriving. And we've introduced a 5-year-old to the delights of eating peas direct from the pod. Some of our crops needed a bit of help. The peas and beans needed staking. The tomatoes needed some TLC too. There were a few failures, as when I planted peas without pre-soaking them, and none at all grew. As my work has opened up again, I realised that, like in the garden, there are a lot of things that are outside my direct control, and others which need patience and perseverance. There are some situations where I can and should intervene decisively. There are others where help should be offered, as in life when a phone call or a card can give support when someone needs it, or an invitation for coffee or lunch just shows friendship. But there are other times when I should just stand back, not interfere, and let things take their course. The strawberries thrived without much help from us. We just left them alone, and they looked after themselves. A fuchsia I was convinced was dead is blooming beautifully just now. In 2 Corinthians, Paul writes that anyone who sows sparingly will reap sparingly, and he encourages generous sowing and a generous harvest. He was talking about financial giving, but it could apply equally to giving time, energy, and friendship. Paul also wrote about divisions in the church and how people aligned themselves with one teacher or another. He reminded them that while he may have sown the seed of the gospel among them, and Apollos watered it, it was God who gave the increase. And God is in control, even if it's not always apparent to us. It's been a lesson for me that I'm not always in control, not just in the garden, but in other areas of life too. There are situations where I need to act, but there will be other times when it's better that I let go and remind myself that God is there and knows better than me. Stay well, and if you're passing by, please stop and pick up a lettuce.